What up, everybody? Welcome to the Mind and My Creative Business podcast. I am your host, ShySpeaks.
And I am your host, Ron, ironically, Jr.
And we are, seriously excited to be with you today. This is episode 0. I can't wait for episode 100, but we got to start somewhere. And I'm happy to be starting with you. So much love to you.
Yes. No, listen. You guys are going to be in for a treat. You guys are going to be in for a ride just as we help you along on your creative journey, right? So we had to start with 0 just so we can kind of introduce ourselves, let you know who we are, let you know why we are, and then what you can expect, right? So let's get into it. So once again, I'm Ron Ironically. I am a longtime music producer. I've been producing music for over 20 years. I've worked with artists like Mahogany Jones, Corey Red, a list of people. But, I've been doing this music producer thing for a minute. So that's kind of me and who I am. ShySpeaks, let the world know who you are.
Right. So I am artistically known as ShySpeaks. You can just call me Shy. I'm a hip hop and spoken word artist, a speaker, a host. So I guess you could just say I'm an MC and I am an entrepreneur. I have shared the stage as an artist with everybody from Ludacris to Lecrae, right? From Kiara Shear to Bun B, right? From Rhapsody to Jeezy, right? So I have this unique ability to be able to be an inspirational artist. So I get to be in the faith-based sector and in the mainstream sector, being able to be there as light. My music is all like, everything is positivity and spirituality. And so, again, like Ron said, I've been doing this thing for a long time, and doing it for a long time, what I began to discover over the years is what is my sweet spot? Like, how am I able to be able to share the stages with those people? How am I able to be in plays and write scripts and do voiceovers for companies and just all the things that I get to do? How am I able to do that? I think it's because of how I operate my art as a business. I'm going to say it again. It's how I operate my art as a business. And so because of that, I found myself in what you would consider high places, right? I'm in high places. And then also I'm interacting on a very high professional level. In fact, one of the last albums that I was featured on, everybody on the album, it's an album with, I'll just say, Zaytoven, the producer, and Lecrae put out an album, who's the artist. And they are both on, I believe, Capitol Records put the album out. Everybody on the album was a signed artist except for myself, right? So how do I get to be in positions like that? And I think it's just when I have conversations with artists like Craig, even artists that are aspiring and looking up to me, they're always saying how I operate in a certain way. And I think that I'm passionate, Ron. I want to make sure every creative knows how to operate their art as a business.
Yeah, like how you said, so you are a recording artist, I'm a music producer, but we not just limited to recording artists and music producers, right? We really focus on those who identify as creators. Because like you said, we've been doing this for a while. And like I said, my thing is, I've worked with a lot of artists over the years, right? Over my 2 decades of doing this. And that's one of the constant things is they did not understand their business of their artistry, whether I worked with a photographer or whether I worked with a videographer, right? Or whether I worked with a recording artist or other producers. They didn't understand the business side of their creativity. And I always found myself coaching and teaching about business because I knew a little bit. And I'm not gonna say I knew a lot of it. I knew a little bit. I went to school for business management, you know what I'm saying, for a short stint of time.
Right. Hold on right quick. I forgot to tell them that. I went to school for business as well. I actually went to school for business administration, and then I got a master's in supply chain management, an MBA with an emphasis on entrepreneurship. So yeah, credentials. Go ahead, Rhonda.
No, listen, that's huge. Because once again, we're letting you know who we are and why we're so passionate about this Minding My Creative Business podcast, right? So my thing was, once again, I was always coaching and teaching and mentoring anyway. Right, 2019 is when I did a pivot. Right, I took a young couple out to lunch. I saw them online. I'm like, yo, I'm feeling their music. They kind of dope. Like, let me kind of reach out. So I reached out to them, just being me. Right, and they said they learned more from me in that lunch that we had, then they had learned the entire 5 or 6 years that they've been doing music, just working with other people, managers and all these other people. They learned more in that lunch. So that kind of, a light bulb kind of went on, like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, I can maybe monetize this, because they walked away from the lunch wanting to pay me. I was just taking them to lunch, and I was just kind of just, once again, I got a big brother spirit, right? That's all I know, is just to help and to, you know, share my information and knowledge. But they was like, no, we want to pay you. Like, you know, a workman is worth his wage. So I'm like, oh, hold on. So I did a drastic pivot, and I developed my coaching business. So that's one thing that I do now, is I coach other creatives on how to monetize their creativity and their gifts and their talents and whatnot. And that's kind of how me and you connected, right?
Right.
We get off into that a little bit later as well. It was like how we connected, and then why that synergy was so strong. We was like, yo, we gotta do a podcast.
We got to do something. So we started thinking about all the creatives that we know. Like, and another thing I will say is, this year, I launched a event center, right? But it's something that was been in the plan since the year before, but you launch it finally, right? So I own or co-own Abide Event Space, and we work with a lot of creativepreneurs, right? Because you have caterers. To me, they're culinary artists, right? Okay. Then you have event designers or decorators, right? So they're coming in, they're doing some type of thing with their flowers, or, you know, they're doing some type of creative design, a florist, right? We're working with people who know how to create these arches and balloon arches and backdrops and all that kind of stuff. So that's creatives who are getting paid. They're in business. So because of the event space industry, I still feel like, yes, I am an artist, but I'm also an entrepreneur, and I'm in a space that kind of continuously allows me to be around all these artists, and so, or all these creatives, right? And so, man, it's just like, I meet them all the time, and I'm so amazed by so many of them who are doing well. They're killing it, like they're excelling. They've been able to turn it from a part-time job into a full-time job, and from a full-time job even into an empire. And that's actually who we want to interview. We want to interview the people who are going to, who have made 6, 7, or even 8 figures. So that is something that's like, okay, this is it, right? This is what's up, because we meet them, and then some of them just kind of shoot off. And what we found is there's some threads there, and we want to make sure that other creatives that we come across are able to be helped. And this podcast allows them to take a deep dive.
Exactly, like you said, we focusing on those that want to take off, right? Because I met creatives that they don't want to be creativepreneurs, they don't want to be entrepreneurs, and that's fine, right? Like we get that, but this is for the people that they say, listen, I have this gift and I have this talent. I know I can monetize it, and I know I can provide for myself, but not just myself, but I want to be able to provide for others as well. I want to create legacy and all these other things. So yeah, this is for them. This is for people that, like I said, that have that creative edge, but they also understand, like, okay, it's some other things that I got to do, because me just being creative isn't taking me where I want to go in my career or as an entrepreneur.
Right. So they have that creative edge and that entrepreneurial spirit, right? Exactly. So we're gonna take you. Let's talk about what they can expect from the show, right? So so I kind of alluded to the fact that we know all these creatives that we interact with, right, in our own respective industries, whether from a production standpoint or from a media standpoint for Ron, or for me being an artist and just kind of like event promoters and all those kind of people. But also even with the other businesses. And so it goes from there. So, right, we're meeting all these creatives. We know all these creatives. We're actually, if you're part of you're here is because we interacted with you in some type of way, right? But there are some people who we know and some who we may not know personally, but we have been able to get a taste of the fact that they over here making like moolah, baby. They're over here making not just income. Some of them are making amazing impact. And yeah, so let's talk about that. If you are here, you're like, okay, I get it. I see you, Shy. You know, you Run. We understand why y'all are passionate about it. But what can I expect from this podcast? If that's your question, let's get into that.
Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to go like behind the veil, behind the scenes, right? because, me and Shy was talking earlier, and we were just saying how a lot of times people present to you on the front end of things, right? They present to you what you can see, but it's like an iceberg, right? And so we see the tip of the iceberg, but if you look underneath that water, right, it's a lot bigger than what you can see. And it's the same thing from the business side. It's a lot bigger, and it's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. So we want to bring that behind the scenes to the forefront so that, once again, if you are just starting out, you can know what to expect. If you have been doing it for a little while, maybe you'll get some information and some ideas that you can add and implement within your business that can help you to scale and grow, or to just put some systems in place. And I ain't gonna get too much into systems because that's Shy's area, right? But I'm big on strategy. So being able to hear some of these people and what were the strategies that they put in place to launch, what were the strategies that they put in place to scale, to grow, what were the strategies that they put in place to properly and effectively brand and market and all those type things. So
right.
those
So
are things that we can talk about.
So I want to go right there for a little bit before we kind of conclude episode 1. You talked about you're not going to get in my lane because I'm systems and strategy. Earlier, I just said that, I started realizing I operate my art as a business. But for me, where I zone in on is systems and structure. And as I was talking to Ron, and when we first connected, it was like, bro, you big on branding and strategy. And so I want to talk about that too, because I want you to understand that on this podcast, every time you listen to it, you can expect to get some type of information about maybe implementing a system that you don't have, or fine-tuning your system, or some type of tool, right, that I'm aware of, that I know how to use, that helps integrate into your business to make things more automated or streamlined, right? How to add structure, not just like setting up the LLC. That's a foundation. We're talking about structure around your creative business, right? So we're going to get into it in future episodes, but that's kind of what I want to get into. Ron, tell them about what you want to give them, what they can expect from you from the brand and the marketing side.
Well, yes, once again, like understanding that how you present yourself in the market matters, right? A lot of times people think that branding is the logo, like the visual thing, and that is a part of it, right? When you think of McDonald's, you think of golden arches and things like that. But there's also the way that they deliver their product and service. That's a part of their branding, right? The experience that the customer has, that's a part of their branding. How the customer thinks and feels when they see or hear your name, that's a part of your branding, right? So to be able to talk to other creatives and how they were able to put those things in place, how they approach those things, and how they continue to implement them in their business, is going to be key. It's going to be huge, right? So that's definitely some of the things that I'm looking forward to be able to talk to them about. So yeah.
Yeah. Man, real quick, I just want to say this, like, okay, so when you talk about how, because we talked about it from an overview, and people are like, okay, I just want to make it clear, like, here I live in Texas. I'm currently reside in Dallas, Texas. Ron, you want to give them where you from?
Listen, I'm from the one and only Detroit, Michigan. What up, dude?
The verdict is still out on who's the big D, but we gonna just know that if you on here with us, you get both of those, right? But this is what I want to say. Here in Texas, and I've seen it in some other states as well, there's a Razoo's and then there's a Papa Dough, right? That's two different restaurants. You're talking about McDonald's, and then there is Chick-fil-A, right? No, there's Chick-fil-A, and then there's like Popeyes, right? You get two totally different experiences. Local chicken, but the experience is different, right? There's a whole lot different. But when you talk about, so branding wise, you have, okay, one that's more like, Popeyes is kind of like Louisiana style, kind of like flavor. They kind of seem like they lean into that ambiance or that aesthetic, right? But Chick-fil-A kind of leans into like, almost like a corporate. How would you describe it? Let me give it to them.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, definitely, like you said, that you can tell that they have two different audiences, right? Where they're once again, we're gonna talk about this too, where we like the importance of niching down and knowing who you're talking to. So where, like I said, for the sake of this conversation, what I'll say is Popeye's market is probably more of an urban market compared to Chick-fil-A's. Chick-fil-A's is more of a suburban. Now, just because their market may be a suburban market, it doesn't mean that an urban market does not partake in Chick-fil-A. Just because Popeye may be urban doesn't mean that suburban market doesn't take part in Popeyes, right? But it's like, once again, they're speaking to a particular audience, right? Based off of how they present themselves, based on what they communicate, based on how they communicate, based on a lot of things when it comes to brand.
Right. And then there is strategy that goes behind that brand, right? So if I'm Chick-fil-A, it's not just the land that we occupy, whether it's metropolitan areas or suburbs, but it's also somebody who's looking for a flavorful, quick experience, and somebody who's looking for a healthy and want to make themselves feel, like they have a healthy experience. And so you have to lean into that way. I'm just telling you, like, you can unpack things, and we're just using those. Those are not brands that are like creative, so to speak, creative entrepreneurs that built that brand, unless we're talking about the fact that they really are, because they're culinary artists who actually probably started the recipe for the restaurant. But I'm not gonna blow your mind and be like, wait, are those creative entrepreneurs? Okay, we'll get into it later. But then for me, I would look at it and say, when you go through the line at Popeyes versus when you go through the line at Chick-fil-A, a lot of times the line at Chick-fil-A is wrapped around the building. Right. And then Chick-fil-A started this thing where they created the two lines, right, to kind of keep it flowing. That's a systematic approach. So now they got the thing that comes over the head and it kind of comes down. Like, it's why, because we're trying to serve more people at the same time and keep this line flowing. And somebody had to sit down and think about, okay, how do I do that? So that's where your systems and your structure come into place. I just want to kind of go into detail a little bit, but at the end of the day, like Ron was saying, if you're listening to this podcast, you are going to have some tips and some of the best practices from some of the most wildly successful entrepreneurs on how to get started, or if you're already started, on how to actually scale, right? You got anything else you want to tell them what they can expect from this?
I mean, you can expect it from a creative's point of view, because this is the thing, right? There are other podcasts out there that are phenomenal when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to business, right? I personally haven't seen any that are focusing solely on the creativepreneur or the creative entrepreneur, right? So keep in mind, we literally are speaking to those who identify as creatives. Because once again, we think and process and do things a little differently, right? So we approach this podcast knowing that, you know what I'm saying? Right. Listen, we may use some of the language, some of the business language, but we also want to scale it down to where, no, we're speaking to you in your language to where you understand it. Because if I start talking about KPIs and ROIs and things like that, right, the average creative may not understand those terms. So we're going to speak it to you in your language. We'll teach you those terms, because I think you do definitely you need to know those terms. But if you're just listening to somebody out the gate and they're using those terms, you're not going to understand it, and it may go over your head, and you may lose interest. So we're going to present it to you in a way to where you can digest it and it benefits you.
Right. So you'll learn some business speak, but we're going to speak it to you from a creative's perspective. And that's really important to say, because again, if I'm hearing people and they're talking about, they're big in business, they're talking about real estate or car sales and all that, and you're like, man, I'm a florist, or, I do balloon arches, or I am like, I do have a business, but I need to talk about how to scale it up, but it's not the same as like selling houses. It's not the same as like selling cars and stuff like that, or a coffee shop or something like that. It's kind of different with what I'm doing. I'm a photographer or I'm a videographer. How can I have a system, right? What does structure look like for me? I just got clients coming from every which way, and like, how do I see? And it's like, well, their business is already built like that, so the structure is built into the business. But it's like, no, there's a way, right, for you to take that videography and get some structure around it, for you to take that, but even if it's like some type of, whatever it is, whatever your creative thing is, there is a way, right, to dial it in, brand wise, strategy wise, structure wise, system wise. And so you are going to get that here, and it's going to be from that perspective. And I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Listen, when you listen to other creatives on other podcasts, because you're like, man, I hear them, they're on other podcasts as well. They're going to talk about it from a general perspective. We're going to ask the type of questions that make them go further and further and further into the back office. Next thing you know, we're going to be in the file room, right? We're going to be in that file room, right? Because you need to know what's really, really going on. I'm going to add this, and this is the last benefit that I will highlight, and I think it's the most important one. In conjunction with this Minding My Creative Business podcast, we have created a Creatives Corner community, right? So it's the community specifically for creatives to be able to network with one another, find accountability together, and talk through these business ideas and even work through your business ideas from a creative perspective. Again, you could have other friends and other entrepreneur endeavors. Maybe they're in trucking, but that does not translate over into owning a production agency, right? Owning a videography agency. So you got to be able to talk about it as in entrepreneurship and business with other creatives. And the Creatives Corner is a perfect place to do that. What is the Creatives Corner, Ron? What does it consist of?
So we have a Facebook group, right? So in that group, we're going to be posting information. You'll have access to the community. We'll be able to share information with each other. So it's not just going to be us where we're curating everything, though that's going to be a part of it. But no, you guys will be able to participate in that community as well and share and connect and so I was saying, that whole accountability and whatnot. And then we have a newsletter where we're going to send you on a regular basis to where we're giving you tips and things that are practical, strategy, and all those beautiful things that you'll need to just keep you motivated and encouraged and inspired on this creativepreneur journey.
So we got a newsletter popping that you get just for being a part of the community, and a private Facebook group that you can network with people on in the Creative Community. So okay, if they want to go ahead and get joined up right now before we even move on to episode number 1, 2, 3 to 100, how can they get signed up for that community?
So it's simple. You just go to the MMCBpodcast.com. Once again, that's MMCBpodcast.com. And if y'all didn't know, MMCB is this acronym for Minding My Creative Business.
Yep. Well, listen, that's all you need to know. For all your updates, you really can head over to MMCBpodcast.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 0. Hopefully, you're just as excited as we are about these guests that we're about to be interviewing, this information you're about to get, because listen, it's going to be good.
Man.
Peace out.